asking you, Sean, and Karen to talk about, I know that you've had an idea, this idea of making a film in Brighton Beach for a very long time, and maybe if both of you want to talk about how you got to know each other, when this idea first came about, and how that idea evolved over the years.
I'll start. Okay. So I edited a short film, a short NYU film that Karen starred in, and
this is 20.
This is
20 plus.
25 years ago, if not more, almost 30, and 95-ish, 94, 95, and I loved him in it, and I said I'm going to start putting him in my films. I put him in a little part in my first film, Four Letter Words, a slightly bigger part in Takeout. His roles kept increasing throughout the years. He's been in every one of my films. We're good friends, and we often talk. You know, we brainstorm, we think about ideas, and for a very long time we've wanted to make a film that took place in the Russian American community in Brighton Beach and Coney Island, Brooklyn. We just couldn't figure out what that would be. We actually even wrote another script that was never produced, like a buddy movie even. But it wasn't the right time for that to happen. And then after Red Rocket, I felt it was about time for us to tackle it, and that's when we came up with Anora.
I just want to start saying that it feels so amazing being here in my hometown with some people I love so much for being here. Thank you, American Festival, for having us. I am in clouds. So, yeah, I mean, this is something we've been talking about since 2009 when we finished a little movie called Prince of Broadway, which is, by the way, going to Criterion Collection now. And yeah, please watch it. In any case, after that, we started talking about Brighton Beach Project, and this is 2024. 15 years later, finally, we're premiering in New York City. I mean, and Sean he used to live, he's a New Yorker too. I mean, he moved to LA right after it, but he's a New Yorker too. So thank you guys so much for coming here today. Yeah.
And from this idea of wanting to make a film with that community and in that place, how did Anora come about?
Well, you know, Karin has ties to that community. His lovely wife, Lana, is Russian American and plays his wife in the film in the church.
She's here somewhere.
Yes. And so again, it was really just about finding that idea. And I had been playing with the idea of a story of a young woman who realizes a little too late that she married the wrong man. And it fleshed itself out to be this, really centered on that. Actually, it was really centered on the 28-minute real-time home invasion set piece. It was something I wanted to tackle, and I think it really fleshed out from there.
So I heard you talk about how you actually had actors in mind before you even started writing. Karen, obviously, since
yes.
You've known each other for very long, but Mikey as well. I mean, you actually approached Mikey about this idea before you wrote the script. Is that right?
That is true. I had the idea in my head, had worked out beginning, middle, and end, but hadn't put a word on paper yet. And but we knew we were moving forward with Anora, so we started. You know, I just had my eyes open for an actor who could take on this role. I loved Mikey in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I thought she stole those last few scenes, and I was like, someday I'm going to work with this person. I just don't know how yet. And then it was just opening weekend of Scream, and seeing Mikey in Scream, and seeing those two performances. I knew in the theater she's our Anora. And I said to my wife and producer, Samantha Kwan, when we leave the theater, we're calling her agent. So we met, and do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, we just met, we had coffee, and Sean pitched me a loose idea for what the story might be, and I agreed right in there that I would love to work with him. And yeah, it was weirdly one of the easiest audition process I've ever been through. I've never had someone want to just write a script for me.
You have Karin already in mind for Toros now, and Mikey, and obviously I offered her the role for Anora. But we also, the year that I was at Cannes with Red Rocket, I saw a wonderful Finnish film that you should all check out called Compartment Number 6 by Juho Kovmasyan. And that's where I saw Yura Borisov, who plays Igor in the film. So I knew he was going to be Igor very early on. And I was able to write the screenplay with the three of them in mind, picturing their faces as I was fleshing out their characters. And it was really a great experience.
Mikey, do you remember what the pitch was?
I do. It was a loose idea of basically a woman that marries the wrong man. I knew he would be Russian. But then he would go into detail describing a couple specific scenes, ideas that he had in his head. So it was more so just of a feeling of the kind of story that we might be telling together. But I had seen his work, and so I had an idea of the sort of filmmaker he was, and I really liked what he was saying.
And what was your response when you eventually read the script?
I remember sitting down and reading it, and I was just reading it as fast as I could, trying to get to the next scene and the next, because I couldn't believe what I was reading. And we had been talking about the story while he was writing it, but it was somehow even better than I thought it would be, or more exciting, and just I was falling in love with the character. So it was very special.
Sean, you mentioned the 25-minute home invasion. I think I'd like to maybe just talk a little bit about that scene, and I just also hear it from the point of view of the actors. Just obviously, it's something that was something you were thinking about early on. It was like kind of a centerpiece for the film. Yeah, I guess what do you see as a function of that sequence in the film? And I'm curious the actors of what it was like to actually shoot that.
Well, yeah, as a function, it's just to pull the rug out from underneath the audience's feet there. And at the beginning of the film, the first 50 minutes of the movie, it's its own film. I see it as a romantic comedy. You could actually leave the theater after the helicopter shot of, pulling out from the mansion. That's her living happily ever after moment. But then we, of course, bring you right into a real-time, very, hopefully, very scary incident that this young woman is going through. So really trying to put the audience in that moment and have them live in it that entire time. So real time was very important for us from the very beginning. My entire cast and crew understood this. And it was really just about all departments making it happen. I mean, it was different from the way that we covered other parts, that I've ever actually really worked in the past, where everything had to be very calculated, over-covered, very, very figured out. And I don't storyboard, but we do shot list, and it was extensive. Right, guys?
It was the most rehearsed and blocked scene that we did. I mean, we rehearsed it probably more than we rehearsed everything in total, just to make sure that we knew exactly where we were at each moment, because there were so many different moving pieces for that particular sequence and so many characters as well. So we wanted to be really clear, especially if we were going to throw ourselves into doing the stunts ourselves. We wanted it to be
Did you hear that?
Very succinct.
Mikey and Yura did their own stunts in that scene.
Is there a lot of training involved?
I did a lot of training to learn how to dance like a dancer, but there was no training involved for any of the stunts. I don't think there's really any preparation you can do when you're doing something. You just have to be like, okay, I'm just going to fight this guy, and let's say action, and let's just go for it.
I just want to add that during the course of those 8 days, we shot in the mansion. The script was evolving, so he would show up in the morning, for example, and say, guys, hold on a second, I have a better idea. And we just sit there, and he would be writing, and actually, throughout this process, the script became better by Maestro thinking of having better ideas and rewriting. And I remember actually on for the mansion scene, I had a scene when it was 11 pages of me having a dialogue, so I had a full-on panic attack over it. In the morning, I show up, and the night before, he texted me, make sure you're prepared for tomorrow. So I show up for tomorrow morning, and he's like, I rewrote it. It's going to be different. Don't worry about it.
Lots of panic on everybody's face. I was like, no, we'll work through this. And we did. It was scheduled for 6 days, but it took 8.
It was amazing, yeah.
Vache, do you want to get in here and talk about?
Yeah, I'm blessed to be here, honestly. This is an amazing feeling. I was just lucky that Karen was following me on social medias because they needed another Armenian character, and there you go. I mean, because when Sean called me, I was thinking it's kind of a joke because he's like, "Hey man, I've seen your comedy," and I was doing comedy in Armenia for 16 years, and it was all in Armenian. I'm like, "How you seen my comedy? Like, why would you watch that?" And he's like, "Karen Karagulian suggested you." He explained, and I'm browsing Karen Karagulian, and I see like he's an actor, yeah, IMDb and everything. And I started watching on social media, and I seen that he texted me like 5 years ago, like, "Hey man, I like your comedy when I see your stand-up," or something, and I didn't even reply. And I'm texting him now, like, "Hey man, I've just seen your text message," after 5 years. And he's calling me, he's explaining what I should do. Yeah, that was amazing. And one thing about neighborhood, we're talking about Coney Island, Brighton Beach. So when I realized what Brighton Beach is, when after the vomiting scene, I was fully covered in that fake vomit, right? And I choose to walk to the office because I was so dirty, I don't want to ruin anyone's car. And I was walking, and a lot of people walking towards me. I was like, and nobody was paying attention on me. It was such a common thing for Brighton Beach to walk someone with covered with vomit. So it was another day on Brighton Beach. So I love New York.
Amen.
Sean, you talked about, thinking about that scene as kind of pulling the rug out. And I think the film does that almost consistently. There's like a lot of shifts. The film really, and I think you've done this in your other films, but maybe not to this extent. I feel like it's a film that combines is in conversation with different genres, and different types of films. So I'm wondering if you can talk about how much that was part of your thinking as you wrote it, and also I think maybe your most all-out comedic film.
Yes, we're definitely leaning into the comedy a little bit more. Well, I think the comedy is just a little more in your face with this film, that was very much the intention, to sort of take us on a roller coaster ride through tones and genres. As just a film goer, I appreciate when there are tonal shifts. It keeps me, on my feet, keeps me paying attention, and it has the film always, hopefully, a little bit ahead of the audience, so that, the next thing can't be expected or anticipated. So, and it was really, what was really special about this is that it seemed, without even much communication about it, I think the actors were just so dedicated and so into their understanding their characters and understanding the story itself and the beats of the story, that when we got to something like the courtroom scene, we all just were on the same page, knowing that we could be a little more broad in the comedy there, almost like sitcom level. It's a complete. If you think about it, they would probably be held in contempt of court in the first 30 seconds of that scene. But we're elevating reality in that moment, and I was okay with that, knowing that we would eventually bring the audience down to ground reality. That was no matter where we went, I know we eventually had to get back to that place, that raw, very grounded area. So yeah.
So I guess speaking of raw and grounded, I don't really want to talk too directly about the ending because I feel like it kind of breaks the spell a little bit, but I feel like we have to acknowledge the ending. I think it's an extraordinary ending. Mikey, it's really... Yeah, I think your work in that scene is really extraordinary. So I'm just wondering, without without breaking the spell. I don't want you to have to explain it, you know, but maybe just talk a little bit about, for you, Mikey, how you know, playing knowing that you would arrive at that place, you know, and how you approached the film.
Well, thank you so much, and also thank you for recognizing that, because a lot of people have been asking me about the ending and how I personally feel about it, and I think it's always more interesting to hear what an audience member thinks of the ending or how they perceive those emotions to be. To me, I think I like that better. I think I'm still kind of in some ways stuck in my character's headspace where I'm thinking about her as opposed to me as like an audience member watching it. But in terms of shooting it, that was a scene that I was very nervous about, and I would see on the call sheet, like, okay, it's 3 weeks away, and then it was 2 weeks, and then it was 1, and it's like, okay, I guess we really have to do this now. But we tried to shoot it too for a handful of days, and something was always wrong, like the sun was out too much, or the snow didn't look real. And then finally we were able to film it, and I think that I was just in a very specific emotional place where I was ready, and so we did it a handful of times, and I think, I don't know, we got something that felt good to us.
Yeah, I think it was, for me, endings are the most important part of a film for me, and so it's always thought about even before I start writing the screenplay. So I knew the ending way back, and it was something that was, again, I like the way you put it. I like the way you put it. I think that it's actually, the way it's designed is meant to be up for interpretation, about motivations and the reasoning. But I do want to say that it's because of my incredible cast and crew that I was able to do it. It was exactly how I envisioned that ending, almost down to the second. It was very technically difficult for my crew to do that, and for my amazing actors to just hit every emotional moment. So I just want to thank them, because that's exactly what I wanted.
We do have to wrap it up, but I'm going to say, if you want to see the film again, Sean and Mikey are coming back for opening weekend in a couple of weeks, and we're showing the film at the Walter Reed, 35mm. These guys will be here. So, congratulations to all of you, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, New York.